there, fiber junkies! Welcome back to the Color Cauldron. I'm Johanna, the owner and dyer behind Potion Yarns and host of this podcast. Welcome to all my brand new viewers. Thank you for joining us. And to all my returning viewers, welcome back and thanks for coming back for another week in the Color Cauldron. We are taking a break today, doing something a little bit different. So we're going to take a break from our wool series that we've been talking about. We have been working on going through the different sheep breeds and talking about wool and their different characteristics, what they're good for, etc. on the podcast. But we're going to take a little break this week just because I wanted to do something different and just shake it up a little bit. I like variety and I like to change. So we're going to take a quick break and then we will go back into our wool series next week. So today, a couple things I wanted to share with you that I've been doing and a couple things that I wanted to show you that I've been dyeing, and it's going to be really fun. First of all, if you watched the video last week, you know that I took a rather unexpected little tumble down my staircase at home and really hurt myself. So I podcasted in a sling last week, and thank you so much to everybody that sent well wishes and prayers and good vibes and positive thinking and everything else that you guys sent and sympathy. I really was embarrassed about literally falling down the stairs doing nothing except walking and no exciting stories or anything, but everybody made me feel a lot better and made me feel like I wasn't a total klutz, so I appreciate that. So first of all, I have a finished object. I feel like it's been forever since I had a finished object, and the last couple times I've shown a finished object on the podcast, it's been like, well, it's finished, but I need to weave in the ends, I need to block it, etc. I finally have something that's completely done, all ends woven in, everything. It's wearable, I've been wearing it already, and I absolutely love it. And that is my Suzanne Summer shawl that I've been showing you guys. This is the You Rock shawl. And if you've watched the podcast for a few weeks now, you have seen this from thinking about casting it on to actually casting it on to various stages of it being knit. I don't think you can get the entire thing in the frame of the video because this thing is massive. I'm calling it my schlanket because it is huge, but I love it for that reason. Actually, I really am getting obsessed with the big extra large cushy brioche shawls that everybody's making right now. Stephen West is one of my favorite designers and he's been doing a lot of really big ones. I actually spent an hour last night on Ravelry just going through all of Stephen West's patterns and putting favorites in my favorites list, on my wish list, trying to decide which one I'm going to knit next, and trying to decide if I could afford to buy any more right now when I really have a whole stack of patterns I have never even knit waiting for me and giving me guilt trips. So yeah, I love him. I also am getting really obsessed with Suzanne Summer though. This is my third shawl I've knit by her, and I think this is actually my favorite one I've done. And that's saying a lot because I really liked the other two I did, but this is just fabulous. So I will put a link to the pattern below so you guys can go purchase it on Ravelry and check it out. I absolutely love how it fades the colors in so beautifully. I love that it's really simple, easy brioche. So if you've never done brioche, this is actually a pretty decent project for your first time because it's very simple. And then it's just garter stitch in between, and it makes these really great wings. So it has these fabulous points, and then the tassels are optional, but oh my gosh, you guys. Look at this tassel, it's so cute. I decided I was definitely doing all 5 of the tassels that she had in her sample, and I'm so glad I did. They're big, they're fat, they're squishy. I used mine in my final, I used the last 2 colors of my fade for my tassels, and I just love them. So quick recap of the yarns that I used. This first skein, I used one skein of 4 different indie dyers, and 2 of them were brand new to me dyers. So this top one is one of my brand new dyers, and it's a guy here in Kansas City called Kim, and he has a guy with 2 needles, and he did this absolutely gorgeous like pink and purple rainbow yarn. It's kind of like glam rock is what it reminds me of. It's really like bright girly colors, but with a lot of like deep acid greens and dark blacks in there to kind of like punk it up. And it's a sparkle yarn. And then I faded into this amazing color here, which is a Whimsical Wood yarn company. Samantha dyed that, and I met her at her trunk show back in May and fell in love with her and her gorgeous yarns. So I bought several skeins, and this is the first one I've knit with, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And then I faded from that into this one that's got the blue and the speckles here. This is Inked Sheep Fibers, which if you guys have watched the podcast for a while, you know that I absolutely love Talia. And so this is her Cry Baby colorway, and It's stunningly gorgeous. And then I faded the last color in is Leon Alexander yarns in their Golden Prosperity colorway. And I just love this. It's like a super bright neon yellow with sunny yellows and golds. And then it has these really fabulous like paprika color speckles. So pretty. And so I just loved the color progression. I love that it's like super cozy and warm and huge, and I love it. It's comfort knitting at its best, but like a little bit more exciting than just plain garter stitch with the shaping and the tassels and everything. I'm not gonna lie, I think my favorite part of the shawl is the tassels. I loved knitting it, and I was so excited when I bound it off, but then I was like, it just doesn't look done yet. I thought about skipping the tassels, and then was like, I have plenty of yarn, and I just love the look of those big old tassels. And so I put just one on. I was thinking about only making like 3 instead of doing all 5. I put one on the very, very bottom point, and I was like, oh no, we're making all 5. This is amazing. So this was actually my first time making tassels for a hand knit item too. Like, I think I made some for a craft project when I was a kid, but I'd forgotten how to do it, so I had to look it up. It's super duper easy. And I just ended up having a ball. I just put on a movie and sat there and made 5 big old fat tassels and then sewed them on and wove in all my ends, and then was like, oh my gosh, this thing's amazing. So I highly recommend that pattern. It's fantastic. And then I have already cast on and been knitting for a little while. With our wool series, I haven't been showing you my in-progress works, and I have been knitting on a new shawl, which is also brioche, by the way. Are you sensing a theme here? I might be more than slightly obsessed with brioche knitting. I may have mentioned that on the podcast before. But this is a shawl that's been in my library for over a year. I think over a year, at least a year. And I have been wanting to knit it for a long time and just haven't gotten around to it. So I set myself a challenge a few weeks ago. About a month ago, I started cleaning out really my whole house, but I especially went through my yarn stash and organized, and I was brutally honest with myself about, am I ever going to knit this? Donate it, give it away, sell it, whatever, if I'm not. And I had a bunch of little like odds and ends that I just kind of ended up giving to the thrift store or throwing away or giving to somebody for little odds and ends projects because I just am not going to use them all. But as I was going through that, I found several partially used skeins that still had like a good chunk of the skein left, or even full skeins where I'd bought like 3 for a project and only used like 2 or something. And so then they were nice yarns like Madeline Tosh and, Jojo Land and all these different companies. And I was like, these are too nice to just like throw away or give to the thrift store. And I still like the colors. I'll still knit with them. I have like a single skein left and I don't know what to do. Or a lot of them I had less than a full skein. So I was like, what am I going to do with this? Oh, hi, Phoebe. Hey, girlfriend. So I set myself the challenge to try and knit up a bunch of the partially used skeins by doing like scrappy projects. And a lot of them I was like, there is most of a skein, like 2/3 or 3/4 of a skein left. So it's enough for a project if I just find the right project or put it with other yarns or something else. So anyways, I was really proud of myself because I decided to cast this shawl on, and I set myself the challenge of only using stash yarn and trying to use up partially used skeins, not even full skeins. And 2 of the skeins I picked were partial skeins. The other one is a full skein, but I've had it for about 7 or 8 years, and so I knew I needed to use it up. So I am knitting Coffee at the Grand, which is by Knit Graffiti. If you follow her on Instagram, that's her name. She's also Knit Graffiti on Ravelry, and I will put a link to this pattern below as well. I really highly recommend it. I wasn't sure about it when I cast it on. Like, I loved her pictures, but it took me, like, I planned to cast this on the minute I bought it last year, and I just couldn't find the right colors. Then I got kind of over it a little bit and like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like it as much as I thought. And then I really got into these big like schlanket shawls, and I was like, this is just kind of a rectangular shawl. I mean, it's pretty, but it's not like huge like my Suzanne Summer one that I just knit or whatever. So for whatever reason, I put it off. I finally started it, and I really like what I picked. I don't remember all of the names of all the colorways, but I can tell you that this gray one here, which you can see here at the top, is a Madeline Tosh skein. I don't remember the colorway, and I've lost the ball band, but it was a partial skein. It was probably like 5/6 of the skein was left. Like, I barely dipped into the skein to finish a project in this yarn. I bought like 5 skeins or whatever, started a project, and then the last one I barely needed any to just finish the bind off in a couple rows. And so I had most of a skein left, so I'm using that for my first color. Then I have this really fabulous soft, it's like a beigey kind of color. It's got a hint of pink to it, but it's mostly beige. Kind of just a soft neutral. And I just really love it. And this is Prism hand dyed. and the colorway is called Melon, even though to me it looks more like a beige. And it's a single ply. Both the Madeline Tosh and this one are a single ply, so I wanted to do something. They're really sensitive to pilling, so I wanted something like a big shawl that would be not getting a lot of abrasion. And then my third colorway is kind of a weird one. And it's this cranberry color here. This is Jojo Land Ballad, which I've mentioned on the podcast before is a really inexpensive commercially dyed company. You can usually find their little 50-gram balls for like $5 to $10 a piece in most yarn shops. And they just make all colors of the rainbow. It's just superwash merino, really nice and bouncy, perfect for socks. It's kind of just an all-around good yarn. So it's weird pairing to put it with the two single plies that are a lot drapier and more luxury, and this is kind of like a hard-wearing sock yarn. But it's working out really well, actually. I really kind of like the mix of textures, and I really like the color mix. It's just very not me. It's very subdued and muted and kind of dark and like Victorian-esque. And while I love the Victorian era, I tend to be a little bit more like rich, bright colors. Like the cranberry looks like me, but not with the other two. They look a little more subdued than I was anticipating originally, but I love it. I think it's really fab, and I think I'm really gonna like it in the long run. It's just very out of my comfort zone. But the pattern is going so fast. It looked so intricate, and you really have to follow, like pay attention, and if she says, do it in this order, do it in that order. But as long as you follow the instructions, it's really actually simple, and it's really easy to memorize. Once the brioche pattern is super easy, it's just like 4 rows, and you just repeat those over and over. So you memorize it very quickly, and then you don't even need to look at the pattern, which is awesome. So I highly recommend both of those shawl patterns. I'm still working on my vanilla socks I showed a couple weeks ago, but I haven't made much progress on them. I'm actually thinking we might do an afterthought heel tutorial, because that's what I'm doing those socks for, and I haven't done the heels yet. So I might do that next, but I love the colors. They're turning out really great. So let's go ahead and talk about the next thing on our docket. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is some stuff coming out of my dye pots. As you guys may know, if you've watched the podcast for a while or if you follow me on social media, I got into painting sock blanks several months ago and have just been having a ball with it. But painting sock blanks is kind of an involved process, and it's a little bit different than the rest of my dyeing style, so it's not something that I do on a super regular basis. You kind of have to wait till they hit the shop in small batches and then scoop them up while you can. And a while back, I had a sock blank that my husband had painted when he was homesick from work one day, and I was painting sock blanks, and he got bored partway through the afternoon and came in and helped me. And it was phenomenal. He did an amazing job, never dyed anything in his life. And he did amazing with just a few tips for me. He jumped right in with very little instruction and created this thing of beauty. And it was in my first batch of sock blanks that went up on my website several months ago, and it sold immediately, like before any of mine. My pride might have been hurt a little bit, but overall I was just excited that he did well. He was so excited that it sold well. So since then, everyone's been asking me to do more hubby hand paints, which is what I call when he paints the sock blanks. And so I finally convinced him. We finally had time. He was finally in town long enough to help me. So we had a date night a couple weeks ago and painted sock blanks together. And it was really fun. I painted, I don't remember how many, 5 or 6, and he painted 2 in the same amount of time that I painted 5 or 6. I will say he takes a lot longer at his, but it's because he's very detail oriented and very precise. So if you purchase one of his sock blanks, you will get a precise, pristine work of art, whereas mine will be, not messy, but I just have a more like loose, free form, kind of abstract style, and detail work kind of stresses me out, especially when painting on yarn, because it's a lot different than painting on paper. And so, yeah, his first one took him most of the night, and I was like, dude, you gotta speed it up here. We can't be here for all 3 days while you do sock blanks. So I did most of them, but he definitely did some, and they just turned out phenomenally. So I wanted to show you my hubby's recent works. The first one, you guys may have noticed this if you follow my Instagram at all, but my husband has recently gotten into calligraphy just in the last few months, and he's doing really well. He's been studying it a lot, watching a bunch of videos, practicing on his own, and he created a calligraphy sock blank for us, all freehand painted. with paintbrushes, not even fancy, tiny little precision brushes, fairly large paintbrushes, and he did this Potions sock blank. It's a bunch of fun, crazy speckles, mostly white background, and fun Potions logo on it. And I just think it's phenomenal, and I love it so much. I've already told him there will be more calligraphy sock blanks in our future, I think. So that one is really cool. By the way, these are going to go up on the shop in a few weeks, so they're not going to be available as soon as this video comes out. Unfortunately, I know that's so mean to show you this and then not give you the chance to buy it, but I am behind in my dyeing schedule because of my arm, so I'm trying to make sure that I stagger my shop updates to fill up the time before my next show that I'm going on the road for, and so it's not going to be in the shop quite yet, but probably in the next couple weeks. And then this is the one he spent most of the evening doing. Look at this, you guys. I told you he's so good. What I love about it is it has all these fun bursts of colors in the middle, but the majority of it is this black and gray kind of smoky background. So cool. I've never done a mostly black sock blank before. So I loved that he had that idea without even like talking to me about it or, you know, asking my opinion. He just created this out of nowhere, and I was like, that's a genius. And I loved his little heartbeat idea going down the middle of the blank. How freaking cute is that? I mean, this man has talent, right? Like, I think Potion Yarns has a new employee, new sock blank painter coming to town. So those are the only two that we have for right now. We are gonna plan another date night soon. We're not gonna wait another 5 or 6 months like we did this last time, but it's not gonna be right away because he's about to go out of town again, but we will be doing some more coming up. And then I did a bunch as well. I'm not gonna show you all the ones that I did, but I had several that I did, and this is one of my favorites that I did. I had a triple moon a few months ago that sold. It was totally different than this one, but it was the same idea of the triple moon, and I loved it so much I decided to create another one with kind of a different background. And I just loved the like deep purple and all the speckles and the gray ends, and it's really, really fun. So sock blanks coming soon to the shop, but not quite yet. And then, yeah, there will also be some new yarns coming to the shop soon. So for our final section, as you may have noticed from the title, we are going to do a French lesson. This is kind of a weird random thing to do on the podcast, but it does tie into yarn, I promise. And here's how. So I did a French collection. I started introducing some French yarns kind of by accident. I dyed a couple that just begged to have specific names that I had been thinking about for a while. And so I decided to name a couple yarns after, like one of them was La Vie en Rose, which is a beautiful song that I absolutely love, jazz standard song. And so I named it La Vie en Rose and American in Paris and a couple other names like that. And it just kind of all happened at the same time. So I kind of accidentally created a collection because a lot of them looked really good together. So I debuted that back in June, and then on July 14th, a couple weeks ago for Bastille Day, I had a shop update where I restocked some of those colorways that had sold out already, as well as adding more French colors. So I had like a French collection shop update for Bastille Day. Really, really fun. I absolutely loved it. I definitely didn't get all my ideas finished in time. I have even more ideas and inspiration photos for more French themed yarns that I didn't get to yet. So there will be more French themed coming up in the future, but that was like my official collection. And several of them had French names using French words or phrases. And so I thought today would be a really fun time to just take a look at a couple of the French names and go over how you pronounce them. We also have one Irish yarn that is coming in because it has an Irish or a Gaelic word in it that the spelling is a little weird, and so I'm not sure people will get it, even though I put in the description how to pronounce it on my website. If you don't take the time to read the description or you just see it on Instagram, you might not know. So I thought we'd have a little pronunciation guide and learn a little bit of French. And the other reason I wanted to do this, not just so that you know how to pronounce my yarn names, although that's important, is because I have decided to start learning a new language. I only speak English, and I took Spanish in high school for 2 years, but while I was really good at reading and writing because I didn't feel as scared about pronouncing it wrong, and I was really good at like reading and translating, I was never very good at the speaking part, and I would always lose my nerve around native speakers or even just people who were already semi-fluent in it. I was always terrified because I just felt like my brain didn't catch up enough. And so after a couple years of being out of high school, I'd forgotten most of it except a few words and phrases here and there. So I decided I wanted to learn something. I also tried to learn French a couple years ago, just out of an old textbook and talking to a friend who'd taken French in college, and she was kind of trying to tutor me in exchange for dance lessons. And then we kind of drifted apart, and that didn't work out too well. She was a great teacher, but honestly, just that kind of more formalized textbook setting was just not working for me. And I wasn't around anybody that spoke it, so it was really hard for me to practice or to actually hear the pronunciations and figure out what I was doing. So long story short, after several misstarts with more than a couple languages, I think I tried German for a second too, I finally decided to just focus on one and just go ahead and pay for one of those language learning apps and give it a try and see what it's like. So I did some research, looked at a couple, and I decided on Babbel, which a lot of you guys have probably heard of. And I have only been using it for about a little over a week now, so I can't tell you, maybe 2 weeks. I think about 2 weeks. But anyways, I can't tell you long-term how it's going, but I feel like right now it's going really well. But I did start at the absolute beginner phase, even though I'd already learned beginner words and phrases and I knew a few sentences in French. I've just decided to start from the complete scratch. I know nothing, just to make sure I got all the pronunciation and spelling correct and all that. So I started at the beginning, and I'm working through it slowly but surely, and I love it. I love that it's so easy to do on the go, and that it's short little lessons, and that there's a lot of like listening and repeating, but there's also writing out and typing, so you learn spellings and things like that. So it's very slow going. I'm far from fluent, but I'm working on it. I'm trying. So I encourage you to go try to learn a new language too. Maybe try that Babbel app or some of the there's other apps out there, so do your research and see which one fits for you, but we'll see. But in the meantime, in case you're not ready to start that, or in case you're learning another language and you're not working on French right now, we're just going to learn a couple quick words. So the first one is actually going to be from a sock blank, because I sold out of all of the yarn that I dyed so fast I couldn't even get the podcast made before it was gone. And due to my injury, I haven't been able to dye any more of it up. But I am going to name this sock blank basically the same thing. So this is one of the sock blanks I dyed the other day, which will be going in the shop later. And this is going to be called Parapluie 2. The original yarn colorway name is Parapluie. And Parapluie means umbrella. So we have all these cute little umbrellas. It's a nice rainy day. I love the rainbow background to these umbrellas too. I think the sock blank is so cute. It was the last one I did at the end of the night when I was tired, and I think it might be my favorite. It's really cute. But Parapluie, I think, is just the cutest name ever. And it means umbrella. How cute is that? So there you go. Hopefully there will be more Parapluie yarn in the shop very soon. And the next one is not super important that you learn right away, because actually this is a mad science skein. I had 3 of these. They were a test. I was trying out a new recipe, and I just wasn't thrilled with the outcome, so I ended up redoing the colorway. But the original 3 I went ahead and put in the Mad Science Lab, and I've sold 2 already, so there's just 1 left. But this is called Comme Ci, Comme Ca. You can see it's lots of pastels, light little colors with some fun little deep purple speckles, lots of white space. But Comme Ci, Comme Ca is basically just like, it's okay, it's so-so. Which is how I felt about this yarn. It wasn't hideous, it was just kind of, it's alright, it's so-so. It's actually really pretty, I think, for the right project, and if you love pastels, this will be a really great one, because I do love the really soft, light pastels and lots of white space in this with the fun little speckles. But I just wasn't in love, and I was working off of an inspiration photo, and I just knew I could do better. So I'm glad I decided to take the time to do it better, because, yeah, this was just kind of meh. But there's still 1 skein of Comme Ci, Comme Ca in the shop. So after I didn't like that, I redid the colorway with a different dye technique and a little bit different dyes, and I love the outcome of this skein. This was so much perfection right now. This is like exactly what I was going for. So this is probably one of the lightest skeins I've ever dyed. I do have a couple other pastel tonals in the shop, but I've never done a successful pastel variegated skein where it has multiple colors. And I'm really happy with this one, like so much. It's just so whisper soft gorgeous. It's got these really soft ballet pinks, this really nice peachy rosy coral, a really soft lavender, and tons of white space, and it's on a sparkle base, which is even better. But this is called Bisou in the Louvre, and Bisou means kiss, which I just thought was so cute, such a sweet little word. This colorway feels very romantic and girly to me, so I felt like a kiss in the Louvre, which, in case you're not familiar, the Louvre is a large, famous, world-famous art museum in Paris, and it's where you can see like the Mona Lisa and things like that. Never been there, but someday I hope to go. But I thought Bisou in the Louvre was such a pretty little romantic idea, looking at the great masters and sneaking behind a statue to steal a kiss with your loved one, and I just thought it was cute. So that's that fun little colorway. The next one is one of my very favorite colorways I've ever created in my shop, and that's saying a lot because I love a lot of my yarns. But this is the one I mentioned earlier, La Vie en Rose, which it's just this beautiful rosy pink with these deeper pink and purple speckles, and it's just so pretty. I actually have it on a couple bases here. This is the Dryad DK, the MCN, and this is the Foxy Sock. And I've also got it on Fairy Wing, and yeah, I've got it on a lot of different bases. And you'll be seeing this a lot in the shop probably because it keeps selling out, and it's one of my very favorites. But it is just absolutely gorgeous. And a lot of people have heard the song La Vie en Rose, which Edith Piaf and Louis Armstrong was another one that did it. Lots of people have done that song. It's absolutely gorgeous. Go look it up if you haven't heard it. But I don't know that everybody knows what it means. And I heard, if you watch the old 1950s version of Sabrina with Audrey Hepburn in it, she talks about this song and how it means, I'm looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, which is true. That's kind of the more lovely way to do it. But really, broken down, la vie, the life, in rose. So it's like life in rose or life in pink, which is looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. It's kind of just like innocent, sweet, taking a positive look at the world, having that kind of joyful positivity and that peace. And I just thought this beautiful soft colorway was perfect for that name. I've been hanging on to that name for a minute, and I was glad to finally find something worthy of it. Okay, and then our last, I think this is our last French one, that I have to show you at least. This is called Pamplemousse. This has been in the shop since early June, and this is one of my very favorite colorways. After La Vie en Rose, this might be my favorite from the French collection, although Parapluie, which is out, was amazing too. But Pamplemousse is super, super fun, and I've had a lot of fun at trunk shows introducing people to this colorway name because Pamplemousse is French for grapefruit. Super simple. But for such a simple, humble little fruit, it's actually an amazing name and super fun to say. So Pamplemousse it was one of the first French names. I think it was actually the first French name I came up with, and then that kind of set the tone for a bunch of the others back in June, and then that led to the Bastille Day update with more French yarns, and yeah, so it was pretty fun. I do have another French word that I'm going to teach you, but I don't have the yarn to show you. There's one other colorway that I've already sold out of and will be updating in the future called Patisserie. And it's just a really cute, like minty tonal background with some fun, like deep turquoisey blue and bright pink speckles. It's really, really cute, really minimalist speckle, and just a really fun, like minty aqua color. And so I named it Patisserie because it reminded me of the little French macaroons and like little blue and minty green sweets that are in a lot of French bakeries. And patisserie just means sweet shop, basically, in French. So I love that name too. Patisserie is just so cute. So anyways, those are the fun French words. I hope that gave you a fun little intro and helped you learn how to pronounce them. That way you'll sound super, super smart when you're like, oh yes, this is my Parapluie that I bought from Potion Yarns online or at a trunk show. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit more sophisticated and maybe even spark your interest in learning French yourself, and we can learn together and you can hold me accountable to doing my lessons. Yeah, so those are all the French ones I have. I do have one Irish yarn I want to show you. And this one is the last skein I have in the shop right now because this one's also selling out very quickly, but there will be more of this coming in the future as well. This was inspired by some amazing moss in a little pool with some pebbles and rocks and stuff on it on the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. So go check out, I put the inspiration photos with this yarn on my Instagram, so go check that out if you haven't yet. It's absolutely beautiful. There's plenty of white space in there for the white stones too, and I just love it. But this is called How's the Craic? And I'll put the title up here so you can see how it's spelled because it doesn't look like that. But when we were in Ireland on our vacation, we stopped in at a wine bar, one of our, it wasn't the first day, but maybe like 4 or 5 days into our stop. We stopped in this cute little wine bar, and we were ordering some drinks and cheese with our friends and like hanging out talking, and the bartender was asking us, are you guys from around here or whatever? And he was like, how's the Craic? And we were like, I'm sorry? We don't have any Craic. We don't bring drugs on our international flights. So it was a little funny. And he kind of laughed, and he was actually from Portugal, I believe he said. And so he's like, yeah, that caught me off guard too. When I first moved here, I was shocked when somebody asked me how the Craic was, and I was like, I'm not on Craic. And apparently in Gaelic, the word Craic means like party, a good time, the party atmosphere, how's the fun, how's the entertainment, how's the life of the party, kind of a thing. So if you ask somebody, how's the Craic, it means like, are you having a good time? Are you enjoying your vacation or your party or whatever? So yeah, and I hope I'm saying that right. I was getting that from a non-Irish speaker, learning it and then passing it on to us non-Irish speakers, so it may have gotten lost in translation, but that's what he told us it meant. And we did have several Irish people after that mention it or ask us or make a joke about it or whatever, so I'm pretty sure that we're at least on the right track, even if we don't have the exact the exact definition. But I thought the pronunciation was really funny, so I couldn't resist naming a colorway How's the Craic. Especially, here's the little gem, the little hidden nugget in this one, especially because the photo that inspired that yarn was literally of a crack in some rocks at the Giant's Causeway that had filled up with water and created this little mossy pool with all these big stones around it. So it's like a little crack in the causeway. How's the Craic? I don't know. It was perfect for me. I couldn't resist that little joke from Ireland. So there you go. Now you can shock everybody by asking them how's the Craic at the next party you go to. So I hope you guys had fun with that little lesson. I really enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'm looking forward to more French yarns coming. As I mentioned, there are a lot of other French yarns in that collection, not just the ones I showed. Those are just the ones with specifically French names that might be difficult to pronounce. But there are other ones like American in Paris, Josephine's Banana Peel, which was named after the great Josephine Baker, who was a burlesque dancer and performance artist from America who made it big in France. She was an African-American dancer who was not appreciated well in her homeland, so she went to France where they welcomed her with open arms and made her an international star. And she's amazing. I've been watching a bunch of her old 1930s films, and they're just so fun. Also in French, so I'm practicing my French with watching French films. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. You can go on my website and see even more of those. Parisian Cafe is one of my very favorites, but I'll let you guys go check that out. But Phoebe and I are going to say goodbye. It is now time for us to cast off. Love you.